and welcome back. Not just to this new video, but to the Path of the Empress slash Divine Feminine series. I, it's always been on my mind, but Twintuitive 717 reminded me of my own delightfulness in it when she gave me a shout out in one of her videos, which thank you so much for all of the love. And right back at you. But it's funny because since then, I've been thinking about, I thought that I was already on the 19th step, and I was all excited because I was like, ooh, I have some definitely good thoughts about the sun card. And then I got on and I looked to make sure. And I even told myself, you know what, it's fine. Even if I'm not there, I can jump in and do it. But then I looked and it was, well, I supposedly completed the 14th step. I decided a long time ago that when I feel like adding to each of these steps, that I will. That's why I set them up in like, step 14A and B and C, so that whenever spirit or I want to add to them for fun and for anyone's benefit who can benefit from it, why not? And so I'm going to practice that now here on the 14th step, also because it it's very fitting that I did the last one was of step 14D, and stopped on there because it's the temperance card step, right? So there's been a lot of learning lately of new aspects of the temperance card and of the meanings held within the temperance card. And also, this is the 58th video, I believe. And so it will put me at 59 videos, and that will be 14 also. And I just thought, you know what? Yes, that is the only synchronicity that I need to go, yes. And that's really cool because as we learn from the temperance card, we start to get to a place where we trust that first intuition or that first sign, whatever it is. In any case, I'm not going to make this overly long, partially because I want you to come and talk to me, and I want to talk to you about the details of it, and also because what I want to talk about a little bit is the meaning of the temperance card, which is alchemy. Hello, Rachel. Happy working. It's about alchemy, and alchemy is such a big subject. And as I was thinking about what do I want to put in this video, because I try not to make them too long, is that it's really hard to shrink alchemy into like a nugget size. It's a really big thing. Though I figured I'd start with the basics of it. Is that alchemy, at least in terms of what we're talking about, it's the process of taking your shadows and releasing them, which makes you lighter. And then as you become lighter, you also become more emotionally secure. You don't carry so much emotional baggage with you. So then you're not another hurt person hurting people. That's a real basic way to say it. And as you start to get good at doing things like that, and I mean, I don't want to say, I don't know. There's a fine line. I was going to say, I don't know if you ever get to enjoy doing shadow work, but actually, there's been some times recently that I've actually enjoyed it. And not in a like, ooh, yeah, give me more, but more in a, oh, yes, okay, so this is a squish for me, and I really want to heal that. And I know once I heal that, that I can get to the next step, and then the next step, and the next step. And so, I mean, once you figure it out, like that is alchemy. Like if you look at like just the absurdity of the history of alchemy, both in a scientific sense and a metaphorical sense and a metaphysical sense, it's kind of this holy grail thing where there's there's been a lot of secrets guarded and kept and things like that on even what it means and what it is. It's very esoteric, and I think that really alchemy is many things, and it is that sort of thing. Like I can say in a very pithy way, it's taking your shadows and releasing them so that you become lighter. And then as you become lighter, your because you carry less on you, you become a lighter resonance to people around you, and then they're able to release things around them and do things like that. And I can say all that and I can know exactly what I mean. you know, though you might come onto this video and when you first hear it, like, pieces of it or you understand the concept of it. But do you have a memory that's attached to a time when you went not necessarily A to Z, but in a linear enough order for you in the cycles to be able to go, aha, I did that and I can repeat it. And alchemy is also, you can consider it manifesting, like what Abraham Hicks talks about. You could also take it on a more literal sense of like what Tony Robbins talks about in terms of like changing your blueprint, like so that your programming doesn't stop you from feeling like you're not worthy of the success that you want. Or you could go in kind of a neutralist Eckhart Tolle sense and say it's about being able to be present and have inner peace in you in any moment, no matter what's going on around you. Like all of those things are alchemy. And the more that you get into, it's like changing a state. And when you get into the sort of absurdities that I enjoy going into, I feel like I just got confirmation on some new astrology and apps and things like that, that this is definitely in my life path to be a completely absurd person who delights in it and just like helps people not take things so seriously and yet also seriously get their lives going the way that they want to in a joyful way, because we don't have enough of that in the world. In any case, like that, that's alchemy also. And when people get on and they talk about their experiences and they translate messages and they do things like, it's all alchemy, it's all in there, it's all magic. And even a simple thing, my magic pink bunny hat, I realize whenever I wear that hat, I like smile. People smile everywhere. I have people compliment me on it all the time, and it's really difficult for people to be mad at me when I'm wearing it. Like to experience any sort of like a gruff, rough emotion is very difficult for people around me. And I, at the time, I don't even realize why until later. And I'm like, that was weird. That situation, like, I totally thought that they would be far more mad at me. But by the time we were done talking, they were laughing and giggling. And then later I go, oh, I was wearing my pink bunny hat, right? That's a form of alchemy. So you could consider like when a clown comes out, they're creating alchemy. When somebody goes on and plays a part in a movie so that they can move those who watch it at home, that's alchemy. Like it's all in there. And in terms of the journey of the divine feminine, not just like I feel like this is a wider message because I know that a lot of my older messages have focused specifically on twin flame, divine feminine to divine masculine. Though I always had in the back of my mind, I knew that this was going to expand into more of the divine feminine's journey on her own. But I'm glad that I followed my heart in it because I think a lot of us start very focused from DF to DM. So it makes sense. And actually, I was kind of laughing looking at some of my older videos and like for one thing how tired I was and for two like trying to get the vocabulary out there, but I feel like it's kind of it's also watching my journey, and in some ways I hope that that helps other divine feminines on their own journeys, because I know a lot of times we can get on, I know my experiences, I'll get on and watch other people who are coaching or just talking about divine feminine energy or even just like life coaching and stuff, and I feel like they always like try to manicure things so that they're so perfect, and I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. Like if you, sometimes I like the manicured ones. I'm like, this person knows that what they got and they got it going on. But there are other times too that I always appreciate like a real story. It's not that their stories aren't real. They're just, I don't know. It's sometimes it's nice to see it. Yeah. I'm glad you do, Rachel, on there. In any case, like that's another example of alchemy in it. And so when we talk about like divine feminine to divine masculine, I think what we think the alchemy is in the beginning, like what we feel like it is being able to turn unpleasant experiences with our masculine into pleasant experiences and get union. Though like more and more. I mean, goodness, 19-year journey and stuff. Like the more and more I think about it, um, the more that I see. Well, I mean, I've seen it from the beginning, and I did a lot more. Like it took a while to feel like I was fully practicing what I was preaching, but that was part of the process. Is getting to that place to where my journey is not all about my DM, and it's not all about the outcome and destination is going to be with my DM. It's a wider thing, like what am I going to do with this series, and where am I going to take things next? I started a Patreon. I found a place that I can do live workshops and personal readings, and like I'm thinking more about the greater overall mission of like what I'm talking about, like coming out and teaching people to embrace absurdities and to really build their self-worth. I remember when I started this journey early on, it was just a couple of people. It was a twin intuitive 717, and I think it's Dragon Tarot. Might be might have a it might be Darren Tarot or Darren Dragon Tarot, something like that. I haven't found him in forever. Hello, Amanda. Um, but like it was funny to me because I started this series and I went in and they gave me some shout outs and were calling me like an expert in self-love. And then I started getting emails from people that really wanted help learning self-confidence and self-worth. And like that expanded too to where like I got several manifestations from years and years ago, some of which even created some tension between me and my DM because they were definitely going up in vibration, but I needed to be able to challenge people without challenging people. And I mean, I'm a type 8 Enneagram, which is literally called the challenger. It's also the protector, but it's the challenger. And so, in my life story, challenging people was challenging, both because it was a no-no growing up. You don't do that. And that made it harder for me to learn how to do it in an appropriate, healthy way, because to say you never challenge someone is actually very codependent. Um, but the other part of it was I was either too sharp or too logical or too wordy, things like that. And I couldn't challenge people in a way that made them feel comfortable. And here's where the alchemy part comes in is part of the reason for that actually had very little to do with the words that I used. It had to do with my own energy because I had those shadows in me that were like my mom telling me, don't speak up, don't say anything, don't challenge people, don't ask why, don't complain about it, just do it first and then ask later, and then when you ask later, don't ask, or you'll understand when you're older, things like that. Or you don't, what is it, very simple ones, don't ask a woman what their age is, things like that. Like you don't challenge people. And I had that energy in me, like even if all I was going to say to someone is, hey, your shoe's untied, you might want to tie that so you don't trip on it. Like I would feel awful at the idea of saying that, like as silly as that might be. But I've always also had that part of me that like I'd rather have somebody come say, "Hey, you got a booger hanging out of your nose. You might want to get that," than to have people not tell me that, and then I walk around like that. And I know so many people that won't, that they felt the way that I did, that it was a bad thing to point out if somebody had something going on, it didn't make sense to me. So I did, like, I always had this little streak in me that was like, no, I want to tell people when their flies unzipped, because I like, even if they do feel like it's uncomfortable, or even if it was forward of me or something, at least at least it was me they had the embarrassing moment with, and I don't care. And then they're not walking around like that. It could be way worse. And I think that just that little part of me that's like, no, be that person. I continued on that path. And I really appreciate people like, part of the reason I appreciate people like Tony Robbins and Eckhart Tolle and Abraham Hicks and stuff like that is that they call people out on their bullshit, but they do it in a way that you like it, and they each have their own way. And if you saw anybody else doing it in that way, like, if it was anybody else, you'd be like, don't talk to me like that, or you'd argue with them like that's not a reason, this and that. But those three in particular, they have such an energy about them. It's not the words that they speak, it's the energy that they put it off in. And I started noticing that, like, the more that I felt like I was, how do you even put it, like, there's a balance. So the more you get to the point to where you recognize everybody has something that they can share, you don't have to be a famous celebrity, you don't have to be really upheld in the community. You just, if somebody comes to you and they present you with a problem, you don't even have to solve it, but if they're asking you for your opinion, if in that state when they ask you for your opinion, you're like, awesome, my opinions are great, and you give it to them and you don't care so much on the outcome, that becomes light work. Because when you're in that energy, they respond well because they can sense. We're all empathic creatures. We all have mirror neurons. We all have a way to be able to tell what's going on with someone else we're interacting with, whether on the phone or through text or in person or anything. We all have that sense, and you can always tell when somebody's like feeling uncomfortable about something that they're doing, or if they're judging you, or if they're flirting with you or manipulating you, things like that. And those things can get confused before you've done your shadow work. So, like, you might confuse somebody who's, you can feel they're deceiving themselves versus they're deceiving you, and all you can feel is the energy of deceit. But you can always still tell there's something in there. And so, when you're in a state of feeling uncomfortable about what you want to say or what you want to talk about, then whenever you bring it up to some, and you bring up the thing to somebody else, even if it's something they really wanted to hear and needed to hear and were looking to hear, they're going to be repellent to what you're talking about. Hello, Jack. Yes. And when you do your shadow work to go in and go, oh, like, when I went and did that, oh, I see why it is that I'm having trouble just giving basic feedback to people from a place of love and lack of judgment and things like that, that they're responding to that. It's like, I always say with kids respond to your energy. They don't like, it's not that they don't respond to what you say or what your performance is around them, but they overall respond to your emotions. And especially if your emotions and energy are really big, then it can be like if you're having an inner storm and but on the outside you're cooking dinner, or you're going to work and coming back, or you're pretending like everything is all good, but inside you're screaming, and your kids are also like being crazier than normal, and you're like, why is this happening? Because look at me on the outside, I've got this armor on, I've got this mask on. There's no reason they should be like that. I'm not yelling at them, I'm not doing anything, but they're responding to your energy. But all people do that. I think as adults, though, I mean, over time, we train ourselves and become conditioned to act appropriately and or maturely. But that doesn't mean that the energy isn't there. And that sort of energy does not go away until you face it and you heal it. It's like, why is it that I'm not being authentic around my kids? Am I afraid to let them see that I have some moments I might melt down, or that I'm tired, or that I'm really affected by whatever thing is going on around us? Like, face that. Why is that? But it happens the same way in terms of like doing this stuff. Like, I recognized after a while the difference in energy of when I was just talking with someone. And this is where I definitely taught, done a lot of divine nuggets and stuff about find your tribe, get your community. It's not just about the healthy, like 3D, you need friends. Like, that's big and it's there. And a lot of your self-worth can show in whether or not you have at least 2 or 3 just healthy friendships. But the other part of it is you need the contrast, because humans, we grow on contrast. So, like, for example, I had 2 or 3 friends, like, in and out, one of them consistently, the other 2 seem to trade out with different people. And I've got like 5 or 6 really like core friends that I talk to regularly. And then I had my family for contrast, my kids and my parents. And then I had my DM and the people on his side. And there was a number of challenges in terms of speaking my authentic truth in a concise and pithy way, to say a lot with few words, because my DM is, what's funny, he can be very verbose. I mean, he's a musician and he's very much a poet, and he can go there. But between us, we tend to create such a big energy naturally that we don't have to use a lot of big words to understand each other. And I've generally been very verbose and sometimes, what's the word, circumloquacious. And it was definitely one of those. I needed to learn well, not even need. I wanted to learn how to do it. I wanted to learn how to communicate in a pithy way that would remove a lot of the tension from my DM and I's conversations. In order to get now, the way that spirit brought me there was through friendships, through interactions with other people, and through getting into research, learning about attachment traumas, stuff that my DM and I had been learning about when we were doing couples counseling before separation. And the more that I began to learn about how to do that, like, I started to learn how he communicated, his enneagram type, his sign stuff, all that different things, and look at it and go, okay, like, I'm learning about how different people communicate, how different people have different core fears, how they have different, like, he's an Enneagram type 6. So one of their core things is safety. I'm an Enneagram type 8. Mine is also a safety thing, but it's in a different way. Sixes tend to go towards social safety because they kind of have like a council in their minds, and so they kind of manifest that around. And as an 8, I'm very self-reliant, and that is a safety thing for me. Like, I dive into independence when I'm feeling unsafe and things like that. So it's not that either one is wrong, and in fact they usually bring great balance to each other, but I had some core misunderstandings about how that worked. Right? So spirit brought me a bunch of 6 types. I'm not even joking. Like, I wanted to know about it, and spirit brought me a ton of 6 types, and then 5 types, and 4 types, and then a friend that knew all about this stuff and all this, the way to translate what that means and how each person does it. And I recognized it in my family, in my children, in my friends, and was able to go, oh, okay, I can see how this is similar and this is different, and I can release that feeling in me that's like, I'm just doing it wrong. No, I wasn't doing it wrong. I was doing it in my 8 sort of way, and I just didn't have the ability to understand that there were different ways to do it at the time. And as I learned how to do that, then I started to be able to do that with people that came to me for coaching or private readings or different things like that. And that became, it became a lot easier with what I already had as a lengthy knowledge from astrology, and being able to trust my intuition, an ability to, like, just meet somebody and just trust my intuition, which again, spirit helped me get there by working with my DM's craziness, right? To be able to trust my first intuition, and now I can almost do it to where I could say, I think this, or like, this thing is going to happen, and then in the same day it happens. It's not an everyday thing, but that's where it's getting to. And that's the alchemy of it, is getting to that point to where you're looking at a wider journey. You're looking at all the little pieces of alchemy. You're learning about the spiral cycles and the rhythms, and you're listening to the music and the messages, and you're getting into harmony with yourself, which I think is the last step 14 video I'll do in a minute, about like the links between what union is, because effectively it is harmony with yourself. And when you are in harmony with yourself, your twin reflects, they are in harmony with themselves, and then that's when union, harmony between the two of you happens. And whenever there is harmony between two twin flames, they're kind of like just magnets, they just naturally go. But in order to be able to get there, you have to be able to alchemize all the old shadow work, the stuff that's holding you back. When your dad yelled at you so many times for saying I didn't do it, or or all the things that stop you from speaking your truth, to the ability to say to your DM, you know what, I love you, and I'm always going to love you, and there's always going to be space for you in my life. So I'm not taking your shit. And you don't get a cookie if you're going to be mean to me, like, to be able to playfully, but still to be able to playfully stand in your power and not just say the words but feel the feelings. Like, your twin of all people is always going to be able to tell how you feel, and they're always going to be thrown off if what you feel and what you say are different things, and it's going to work the same way vice versa. And when you can get to that space where you can really just be comfortable with who you are or what you want to say from each moment, you don't have to plan it, you don't have to gather data, you don't have people tell you if you were right about what you think is happening, stuff like that. Then you get that alchemy, and that alchemy is even cooler. Well, all right, y'all. I'm going to end this one here. I will probably be right back on to do a final step 14 video, and then we're going to move on to step 15, which, I still got to check. I feel like I did the step 15. I feel like I was at the moon card and I was ready for 19, but whatever it is, we're going to go with it. Maybe I'll make some new videos for those series if I did do them. Either way, thanks for liking, sharing, subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next video.